This video is going to walk you through putting together this sort of wraparound effect with using part of an object. So hiding behind an object and then bringing part of either your hand or part of the object and making it visible behind it. So the first step is to go to File, Scripts, and then Load Files into Stack. And go ahead and hit Browse and then find where all of the pictures are saved. I'm going to highlight them, so I'm just going to click and drag across the screen there to highlight all the pictures. Then I'll hit Open. And make sure before you hit OK, you check off the box that says Attempt to automatically align source images. And then I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to take a minute, so be patient while it loads your files into a stack and tries to line them up. The layers are imported. If this was your project, you'd want to kind of click through these to make sure that you're wanting to use all of these images, but for these I have downloaded for you only the ones that are going to be used. So these are good to work with. You can see as you're clicking through them that hand does move to a different spot behind the tree each time. But I'm going to just start with that first layer, add a mask to it, make sure my paintbrush is set to black, and it's set to normal, 100% opacity at the top. And then I'm just going to mask off that hand, hit Command I, hide that hand so I don't get confused with which layer I'm working with, add another mask, and just continue to go through all of these layers, hitting Command I, hiding it, and adding the mask onto it. So this one is a pretty straightforward technique. The only spot where you're going to run into a little bit of trouble is areas of overlap like this. So we'll talk about touching those up when you're finished, but for now just keep going through all of these layers, getting those layers masked and then unhidden and then continuing through. So I'm going to come back once all of these hands are masked off and we'll look at the next step. The hands masked off, and that brings me to my bottom layer, which is just the girl standing in the background here. So don't do anything to that last layer. So leave that where it's at and bring back all of the hands here. So I'm just unhiding these. Now obviously all of these are going to need touched up a little bit since they are overlapping part of the figure that's in the foreground. So to do this, I'm going to find my first layer. So this one here is only overlapping a little bit of that hand. So I'm going to select my mask and I'm just going to paint right over the spot that it's overlapping. And then I'm going to hide that one, so that one's good where it's at. I'm going to move on to the next hand. So this one is overlapping a little bit more and it's fairly detailed because of the hand. So what I'm going to do on this layer with that mask selected is choose the quick selection tool, which is hidden if you have the magic wand tool up. It's a couple down, click and hold it down until you see that quick selection tool. And with this, you can quickly select parts of the hand, and I'm going to make that selection tool a little smaller to select around the fingers here, just to make it easier to refine your edges around your selection. If you select too much, so too much of the tree here is selected, you can switch your selection tool to the subtract from selection, and then you can just erase parts of that within the tree there. The next step, just to refine that selection to make it a little bit better to work with, is if you hit select and mask and then change the view to the pink overlay, you can now see and refine your selection just to make sure it's a clean edge when you go to erase the tree from the background. So everything pink is what's not selected. I'm going to use this second tool here just to paint quickly around the outside, and that will automatically kind of touch up my selection for me. So go ahead and paint around the outside of the hand and make sure those edges are getting cleaned up pretty nicely. And then when you're finished, you can hit OK. So now I have that good selection around the hand, but I want to erase or mask off what's behind the hand. So that area of tree. So I'm going to just flip my selection really quick. So I'm going to go to Select, Inverse, and that flips my selection. So now you can see the dotted lines are on the outside of my image. So everything on the outside of that hand is selected, which is good because we want to erase on the outside of the hand. So I'm going to switch back to my paintbrush, leave it set to black there. Make sure I have the mask selected on that second layer. And then I do have to be careful when I get to erasing around the shirt here because I did not include that in my selection. I'm just going to make my brush a little bit smaller for those areas. But now I have that pretty good selection around the hand, so when I zoom out, I can see that tree was erased from behind the hand. I can hit Command D to deselect it, and now I have that hand outlined around the shirt there. Another option to make this easier, if this was something you were doing for your final project, would to be using a different person as the clone that's standing on the tree there, but this is good to practice seeing how to touch areas of overlap up because you're definitely going to still have those on your final project. But again, instead of the same girl posing with the hands and then on the tree, you could maybe have two people, one person posing on the tree, and then the second person reaching out on top of that person with the hand in each picture. You would just have to make sure that this person standing in the middle did not move at all. But as far as practice goes, this is good to just select around those hands and try to clean those areas up. So I'm going to hide that, go to the next one, see what's overlapping. So we have some area right around here that I can just quickly touch up with that smaller brush and refine. If I erase too much and then get rid of the wrong arm, I can switch the color back to white and then just bring that area back. So switching between the black and white is going to be really helpful to adjust these pictures. But I'm going to zoom in. Again, use that quick selection tool. Make sure it's set to this first selection here. Try to select around the hand. If it selects too much, I can subtract from my selection. And then I can hit select and mask, and again using that second one I can try to let Photoshop automatically touch up what is selected. So it's doing a pretty good job here of selecting the hand and the fingers. And then when I'm done and it looks like I have a good selection, I'm going to hit OK. Inverse my selection, so select inverse, that way behind the hand is selected and outlined so you can see those little dashed lines. And then I'm switching to my paintbrush and just painting around that hand there so I can get rid of any overlap, hitting Command D to deselect, and then you have just that hand there. So when you're finished, you can bring those hands back and you can see them like they're on top of the person here. So this is what that end result looks like. I did add the levels and curves to this as well, so make sure you do that. But you can see those clones coming back into the composition. So be creative if you do this for your final project with where the hands are located. Maybe you have the hands coming up out of the grass and then erase the rest of the person in the background. Or maybe you have the hands doing different poses in each of them, but be creative if you're going this direction for your final project.